Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome staff meeting, October 21st. Got the Calvary here. Got one really important topic. I think we might dive into a couple more, but Tom Stoltz has a prearranged meeting, so he's not with us. So we hand it over to Deputy County Manager Tim Kaufman.
Morning, Chairman and Commissioners, and I'm going to turn it over to Tanya and Jason. They're going to carry the load this morning. So
The pinball, Tanya.
Morning, Chairman and Commissioners. So we want to talk this morning about our legislative platform. And we have our fantastic lobbyist, Jason Watkins, who is here this morning to help us just kind of fine tune our platform. Before we get started, there's just a couple things I want to add. We were waiting on aging and CDDO. So if you turn to the second page under appropriations, under aging, we still have not heard back. I know that they were waiting on their association. So I think we may just have to cut this out for tomorrow. As you will recall, I'm on the agenda tomorrow to possibly adopt the platform for tomorrow. So I think for that, let's just cut that out, and I may have to come back at a later time and update our platform with the aging requests. And again, that's just what we put in there is just to support their association request. So I'll cut that out for tomorrow. What I did add in is CDDO's request, and that is to support their association, which is InterHab. So if you don't mind, I'll just go through real quick and state the four items that they added. So it was to support InterHab's request to, first bullet is to invest in behavioral health supports for individuals with IDD by funding pilot programs and expanding crisis response capacity through community-based stabilization options, including the state institutional alternative program and local stabilization beds. Second bullet, restore lost CDO administration funding by carrying the 2.4% increase from fiscal year 24 into the fiscal year 26 base budget and sustaining the 2.4 waiver allocation as ongoing support. Item 3 then is restore lost state funding so CDDOs can meet community needs, fulfill DDRA responsibilities, and implement a new community support waiver. And then item 4 is authorize and direct the transition of Kansas targeted case management reimbursement system to an encounter-based model supported by a properly calculated rate to improve access to critical case management services. So those are the only things that has changed since the last time we spoke on the legislative. So I don't know where you want to go from here. Jason's here, so if we can, I think I'd like to kind of turn this over to Jason, maybe get his input on our legislative platform. That sounds good.
We're good with that. Jason, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I don't see anything on here that jumps out and alarms me. I do think it's important that the commission and its staff kind of understand the environment that we'll be going into. So a couple of things to consider. One, we had last year the shortest session we had in a long time. I think going this session will be my 21st in Topeka in one capacity or another. Last year was certainly the shortest one I've ever seen. I had dinner with speaker here a couple of weeks ago. He told me that his goal was to try to be done in March. So that would be even quicker and even shorter than last session. I don't know if that's a possibility, but you have a Senate president who's running for governor. You have a House speaker that's running for insurance commissioner. They can't campaign when they're in Topeka, and they can't raise money until the legislature is adjourned sine die. So they have plenty of motivation to have a quick session. In addition to their mindset that, when the legislature is not in session, people are safe. So that's one big consideration. Second one being there are no bills being drafted right now. Revisor's office is waiting on new software. That software has not arrived yet. Therefore, there's no legislation being drafted. Now you can still get in line, and that's important because they're going to work on a first come, first served basis. So if there's legislation that comes out of the decisions that you guys make over the next couple of days, we'll want to get those county councilor and I want to work together to get those to the revisor as soon as possible. But last year, we had legislation last year that we had put in very early. And I think there was one we didn't get back at all because we, the deadline came and went. We said, what to do about it. The other legislation came a matter of days before the turnaround deadline. Getting a bill back right before the turnaround deadline doesn't do you any good because there's no time for a chairperson to schedule a hearing. Getting something to us 2 days before the deadline, there's not going to have a hearing. You really need a minimum of a week, if not 2 weeks. So I say all that to say, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, as much as you can prioritize, you have a lot of items here. Half pages. That's not going to happen in terms of getting all of that. So I think, as leaders of the county, you're going to have to really dive in here and decide what do we really have to have. So, I'm not saying you have to remove items, but we need to know what the priority is. That can answer the questions.
Well, that's great. And, I think maybe I got a couple of questions, and I think maybe we kind of walk through this to figure out what is a top priority and what maybe wouldn't be a top priority. Then we can have a discussion on what is included or not included. To that extent, let me ask, do you recommend that what we're presenting to the legislature is our official platform, knowing, should we get it down to the 2 or 3 and just leave it at the 2 or 3, or do we want an expanded one that we're handing and then we just tell them these are our top priorities? How do you want us to go about this?
Well, I think you can do it either way. I want to be clear. I've read through this. There's nothing on here that's not in.
Right.
And so, and understanding that successful as we have been in past years, policy in the legislature is really typically more of a marathon than a sprint. We've been lucky to get some policy through the first year and put it up there, but that's the exception to the rule. Things typically take a little bit of time. So I say that to say it's fine to have things because our legislators look at it and it starts to plant that seed and we're able to have conversations. But at a minimum, I think there needs to be somewhere on this agenda where we say, this is what we have to have.
Some priorities.
Start with that.
Okay. Well, why don't we just walk through it and then talk about what maybe I'd see if we can agree on identifying what it is. Before we get into that, Jason, could you give us an update on what might have finished the year below the line that we anticipate might get above the line? And I know there was a cremains bill that was out there. Is that something that we need to put back on the list, or is that something that is going to go through?
Yeah, I'm trying to recall. I believe the House passed that. Again, we just ran out of time in the
Right.
Senate. Went to Senate, Fed, and State, and we'll have to go work with the chairman of that committee. He tends to have, kind of his own set of priorities. So we'll need to go work with him. But I think to my recollection, Mr. Chairman, that's the only thing that passed out of committee that's sitting there waiting for action.
I think that's right. Is that right, Justin and Tanya? I think that's it. Yeah.
That matches my recollection, Chairman.
So does that need to be addressed in this, or do you think that's something that?
I believe it in the agenda somewhere. I don't know that it necessarily needs to be, as I described at the top of the document.
Okay.
We're already actually working on that.
Good. Okay, do you want to walk us through maybe this, Tanya, and we'll just go from there? And I see it on the legislative priorities, obviously Treasurer and Tag Office is here. Brandy is also here. Brandy Bailey, our treasurer, is also here. So
Okay, so under legislative priorities, we've got 4 items, and so I'll walk through that. So the first item is treasurer. Okay, first bullet then is support legislation appropriating additional budget for the county treasurer's tag office. And then just a statement, these functions are state mandates that require local property tax funding. The auto license support from the general fund is anticipated to be 1.1 million in 2025. Second bullet then is lift the geographic boundaries, provide the ability to complete tag work at any tag office in the state. Third bullet, privatize administrative portion for the registration renewals. Enhance and advance KDOR technology. Expand online capacity and stagger personalized plates. And final, support a raise in fees or transaction fee for a fee-funded office/structure.
Is it clear in this that we're talking about updating the state server, the one that continues to, seems like it crashes several times a week? That expanded online capacity, no, I'm sorry, enhance and advance KDOR technology. KDOR is bigger than just tag office. I guess I want to be really clear. We're talking specifically about the tag office
Mover system.
statewide server that crashes. That one needs to be, and again, they charge a modernization fee, which primarily funds KDOT. If you want to have a KDOT fee, let's do that. But we need to fund a upgrade to the system, specifically the server.
Commissioner, I think then I would go ahead and say that. Enhance and advance KDOR technology, including.
Specifically, the tag server or
Movers.
Okay, go ahead and be direct about that.
I want to give an update here. That way we can discuss. I have several things we've been working on Senate Majority Leader's office on some of these things. Jason, you've been involved in these some of these conversations. He's for a lot of these things. He has indicated that he thinks it would be helpful if we limit what we're going to ask in conjunction with the big 5 counties and maybe even the Treasurers Association, and then let him go and work a separate bill on a couple of these other things. Here's what the conversation we've had, and again, Brandy's here. The service fee, allow it up to $15 max and give discretion to the county treasurers. So it's allowing discretion to the county treasurers and capping it at $15. Right now it is $5, correct?
To be clear on that, are we talking the service fee or are you talking about the
Service fee.
facility? fee?
That's the service
Wanna
fee.
expand.
There's a second piece,
But you're gonna have two?
correct?
Okay.
Because there are 2 now. It's changed the facility fee to a transaction fee. And that also includes what happens online and in the drop boxes, because those are being processed behind the scenes. And that's a $5 fee, I believe. Correct? Yeah, go ahead and sit there. So to cap those things on the fee piece of it, a service fee, capping it at $15. Obviously, the legislature is very weary about fee increases, but allowing the county treasurers to have discretion on what that fee is, but there is a cap. And then changing the service or the facility fee to a transaction fee, which also includes what happens online and in the drop boxes, correct?
Correct. Yeah, there are 2 separate fees. And that $5 facility fee is only on those specific transactions that are done in the facility. So that would help there. And then there is a county service fee that's $5 now that comes directly to the counties, and that's on every transaction. So if we could increase that, because we feel like as the Treasurers Association, that is the easiest fee to increase because that stays 100% with the counties.
Right. So those are the 2 suggestions that he has. And then I think he would support. The other one is on the 5-year cycle on personalized plates. Obviously, a staggering of that. So he thinks obviously that's important. Now, that's what's driving your surge traffic.
That should be.
Well, according to him, it is. On the KDOR server, he talked about this being an appropriation and not needing statute.
Well, Justin and I, Mr. Chairman, talked about that last week and trying to figure out how much this server costs.
And I don't know if,
Dollars.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think the conversation was that if the cost is low enough that it could just be an appropriations matter. I don't know if KDOR gave any indication or if Scott has any idea. I realize that it's the state system and not the counties. But I think the cost might be low enough that I think from what little research I had was $10,000 to $20,000 is the cost, which is pretty, I mean, usually that's the kind of thing that isn't done through legislation.
Good morning, Scott Wagner, your CIO. I frankly do not know the scope of the server. I don't know if it's a set of servers or physically a standalone server. Standalone servers are commodity based at this point, so we should not be talking excessive dollars for those. I think we talked $10,000, $20,000, but that is just completely without understanding how much disk, how much memory, those kinds of things that go into a sizing. So more analysis would have to be done. But frankly, this, for as important as this is, this should be appropriation taken by the state, managed by the state, shouldn't have to be mandated by us.
Yeah.
But I think the reality is that we pay the price of whether it's underserved equipment and or old technology application. Could be both of those.
Brittany, do you have any idea? They said how much this thing's going to cost?
So when I offered to buy it a few years back, we were talking $25,000. That's why I said, I'll just buy that server. And they told me no. So true, I believe it is just an appropriation issue and them just getting up and going and buy it and let's put it in place.
So, Jason, how do you want to do this on the platform piece? I mean, this is important and this needs to happen.
It does need to happen.
Yeah, I think you can leave it where it is.
Okay.
I think we need to be more direct in our language. We talked about those fees going up to $15. We need to say that. And then I think you're fine to leave this server piece where it is. You know, it's probably a $25,000 server, and Department of Revenue is going to claim to the legislature that it's $300,000 in labor.
Oh, God.
That's just, they always do that. It's so, you know, it's going to be bigger than a $25,000 appropriation, but we just need to go figure out what that is and either get it in the base budget or get it in through a proviso, which has full effective law. So just real quick, Mr. Chairman, how long ago were those fees capped at $5?
Oh, that county service fee? Gosh, I think that county service fee came in was it early 2000s? Because that's out of all the fees, that's the newer of the fee.
And I was looking at Tom Henry. Tom, sorry. Thought my co-counsel might know that off the top of his head. We could look into that though, but I think it's been decades is probably
So
at least.
most of the fees are 50 years old, but out of all of the fees, that is one of the newer of the fees, in my recollection, going to what I've.
And I'll just give you the lay of the land with the Senate Majority Leader is they don't have an appetite for fees. So the political cover is let the county treasurers have flexibility to determine what they need. Sedgwick County, maybe we leave it at 5, maybe
Right.
we take it max it at 15, but the rural, his conversation is some of the things that we think will be helpful for the entire ecosystem. He doesn't think has legs with some of the rural counties. And he's trying to find some options here that he knows he can get across the table, what he will support, that he thinks will actually change the ecosystem at the tag offices, while separately he tries to do some more sweeping reforms. So that was the lay of the land. So for our legislative platform, his recommendation was keep it really simple. Talk about the service fee and the flexibility, the transaction fee that captures the back end and the drop boxes, the 5-year cycle, and then whatever we want to do on the server.
And that transaction fee won't even really look very much like a fee increase because it's just changing the wording from walk-in traffic to all traffic. So it's really just changing a word in that particular statute.
We can talk more.
Okay.
I don't slow us down, but it is important for us to understand when those were last addressed.
Right.
And we've had a creative inflation coming out of it, and every legislator knows it.
Okay.
So there's some valid arguments.
Do you think the legislature by and large thinks and agrees that we have to do something at the tag offices based on this last year?
There's probably some that aren't even aware that there's a problem.
I would agree with that too, because as we are telling our citizens, reach out to the state legislatures that we need help, then I get emails from legislators, what's this about? So, and that's even in the South Central District. So there's still several legislators that have no idea what's going
Okay.
on.
Well-
Even yesterday, Johnson County got crashed on their server, right? So you've got the 2 biggest population centers have been front center on this server issue that's sporadic. So
You just have to go talk to them.
Okay, well, I think we can all agree that the tag office and the treasurer is one of our top priorities. I guess the question is, are we writing legislation and giving that to the Senate Majority Leader to run? I think that's what we've kind of already done some of that work, had those conversations with him, so. And no,
So our association they're really at a loss. They don't know which route to go. And so I'm like, I'm relying on Sedgwick County to help with this because I feel like the association is not going to go anywhere.
Then I would say that Justin and his team should get to work writing that.
Okay.
And then give it to the Senate Majority Leader's office. So it's a request from him. Move this up to around the line just a little bit.
Okay.
We can certainly do that, Chairman.
Okay. Other thoughts here?
Just wanted to stress, as we talk to these folks, right now the solution is property taxes. They don't want us to do that.
Right.
So this is a fee funded office. The fees need to be able to cover the costs. And right now it doesn't. And we're dealing with a property tax problem. So if they really want to be consistent and not ask us to raise property taxes to fund their office, they have to do something with these fees.
Agreed. Did you have something, Commissioner Weinstein?
No, I think you kind of answered it. My question, just being new here, can you put that dollar amount next to the server and kind of point out maybe the small amount that it would take to improve statewide?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we'll start that one, Tanya. I think you realize that that's a big priority. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if that, how, although I'm a fan of the privatization, but I don't know how, if that would blur a lot. There's some low hanging fruit here that I think privatization might be a real issue statewide with other.
I would just say that I agree. I think this is a great way to reform, but the feedback we got from the Senate Majority Leader is that he's going to have an uphill battle with rural counties. And so
This is too complicated for this session. I think they ought to stay on the list simply to track them, but we're not going to do this session. I would say probably 27 would be the beginning of the next discussion on this in the summer of 27. So the 28, you can actually really modernize this office would be a good goal, but I want to keep it on the list because it's a great idea. Everybody keeps talking about how privatization would be the cat's meow. This is the ultimate solution. Okay. We just don't have time in a short session to solve this problem.
I agree. Yeah, that's good, Commissioner. Okay.
Okay, so just to be clear, are we keeping privatized on here or are we pulling it off?
I would say we pull it off, but, and then work like what Jim's saying, we work the behind the scenes and off session.
Okay, so that was the only thing that came off, and then I got some adjustments to make on the boring on the other ones, correct?
We created like a watch list, like you see, CIP. Trick to take off so we don't lose track of.
No, I can
create a watch list of.
Okay. Next item then is under corrections, and we're still on legislative priorities. Discontinue the implementation of the proposed KDOC biased funding formula and replace it with a transparent formula that abides by state statutes and is fair to all judicial districts. Sub-bullet then includes salary adjustments for ISO CO to be competitive with KDOC court services.
Okay. We obviously think this is a massive priority and remind everybody Secretary Smuda is in town, I believe next week, have a discussion about this. So is this legislative, Jason? Is this something we want to be on the platform, obviously?
Yeah, I think it has to.
Okay.
I think you're all aware. We tried to go through the route of having the administration help us with this. And that unfortunately was fruitless. So the legislature is, unless something comes out of the meeting next Monday with Secretary Smuda, and maybe it will. Absent that, legislature is our last hope.
Okay. Right. Everybody okay with prioritizing this?
Yeah. Yes, I would say so.
Yeah. Steve gave the nod. The nod in the fence. Okay. We keep moving.
Third item under priorities, finance, continued support and review of HB 2377, a change to the current distribution formula for the county's 1% sales tax. PSA 12192 creates a disincentive to reducing property tax by further reducing the relative portion the municipality receives sales tax funds generated by a county-wide sales tax.
Guess the question here is just priority level. I mean, we talk about it here. Commissioner had a great op-ed in the Derby Informer I saw. Very good op-ed. So Jason, is this a priority that you want us to put on top of the list to push? Or?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's one that both the Senate tax chair and House tax chair agree that there's huge disincentive. There's so much talk about property tax, and then you have a statute that disincentivizes or reducing property taxes. I think the question, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, is what is our solution? You know, we recognized last year that what we put in the bill did some things we didn't intend for it to do. And there's been discussion. There was an interim hearing, I think that Commissioner Meitzner testified in. Right now we have the freeze. And that freeze is actually good, I think, for revenue. But we need to know what we're proposing in terms of.
Right.
I don't think we should just say, hey, go figure it.
Lindsay, any thoughts to that?
So we have engaged Dr. Guo with WSU to actually do some analysis, and he has, we just signed the agreement last week to get that done, hopefully by Thanksgiving. So he is looking at things that may not even tie that portion of the formula to anything to do with land use or property taxes or anything. So he's exploring a couple different options. I know he's also getting data from Johnson County because they also have 20 cities, but then they have, I think, a variety of other sales taxes that are at use or at work too. And so because we are the two largest with probably the most complex situations, he's going to do some in-depth analysis of that down at the transactional level, but then also look at what the other 80 plus counties have going on. So we'll have some recommendations on some options there. And then I know he's also talking with some of the city managers in the area to try and understand their concerns.
That's great. Appreciate the work he's doing for us. Are you okay with leaving it just generic here, the way we have it with language? And Commissioner Howard, any thoughts?
No, again, I feel like I've been left out of the conversation just a little bit. So just, I guess, just humor me. I'd like to at least share that I think the freeze is great, but as sales tax revenues go up, it should be applied to those that deserve, if you will, to a new formula based on assessed value. It should go towards those until they're made whole, if you will. And once that happens, then the new formula kicks in for everybody. So no one loses money. They're simply frozen until the revenue is enough to actually implement the new formula entirely. So the timeline of this is based on growth in the fund. To me, this is the obvious answer to this problem. Again, no one wants to lose revenue that they're currently used to. So the budgets only basically go out 1 year. They anticipate what would happen over 1 year. They don't know what happens in the future. I don't want to see them lose revenue. I think we could do that by transitioning the new revenue to get us to the new formula. It might take 5 or 6 years to get there.
I can, if it's okay with you, Commissioner, I'll ask Dr. Good to reach out to you and maybe have you explain what your thoughts are, and he can include that in his analysis. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. There's 3 priorities.
Okay, and then,
And we're 3 for 3.
okay, and then this next one that we had down as a priority, Jason just spoke to that. That's the Cremain bill. And so I think what we'll do here is I'll just move this under policy.
Okay.
Okay, so
And let's get rid of the language that deals with refile. We don't have to refile anything. That bill is filed, it's introduced, it's passed the body.
Okay.
We don't have to refile anything. It's a lot.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
okay, okay, so now we'll move under appropriations. As I mentioned, we're gonna take off aging and they have to come back to that. So under appraiser's office, support legislation appropriating additional budget for the county appraiser. These functions are state mandates with local property tax funding. Sedgwick County funded their appraiser in 2025 at 6.1 million. So we have a lot more other items, but that falls under policy, so for appraiser's office. Okay, and then under ComCare, now this is supporting the association's request. So support the Association of CMHC's Kansas Inc. request to addressing the needs of the uninsured and underinsured, keeping the promise of mental health reform continue and enhance. Funding to support behavioral health services for the uninsured. Request is for an additional $4 million for fiscal year 2027 for CMHC contract funding. Allocate additional funds to address behavioral health workforce shortages and continue to maintain system improvements through the certified community behavioral health clinic model in order to preserve the effectiveness of the model and recognition of the investment made by the state. CCBHC certification process should continue to be limited to the CMHCs as originally intended.
So as we're learning more about the CCBHC model and the funding, we're just asking you to maintain because it's a good model. We don't want them messing with it in the reverse. We're not. So we don't want necessarily increase. So I'm not sure it even needs to be on our agenda. it is, I'm just, we've got good momentum. We're building the state mental health hospital. St. Joe's just did 18 million improvement in crisis stuff. We got crisis.
The reason the association, they don't, in the last few years, they have been other systems that are tried to be included in this fund. Every time we foundation providers.
Issues.
The funding that goes to the distance and this then decreases pressure on property tax. So it's a joint thing. We have it up as a joint thing. State countries. If you expand that, including more providers. So that's probably going to be better. Decrease the pressure. So that's what
This seems a lot like it's defensive language rather than we're not asking for them to go do something. We're asking them not to do something mostly. With that in mind, I guess if you can't theorize how to write the bill, then I don't know. I'm not sure it belongs on here necessarily. I think it's more of a intent. We want to make sure we don't lose what we have currently. And if we want to enhance it, we take some more money. Again, but if there's not a bill to be written, if there's not specific language to say, here's what we're asking for specifically, the $4 million is specific. But besides that, it's really more defensive language. Yeah, I think we know we need this funding, but I don't know how to write that bill. Just simply say, please don't take the funding away.
We couldn't say, if I could dovetail on Commissioner Howell, it probably wouldn't be productive to say you cannot add any more providers of services, which
Just limiting the
which is
CMs.
limited. So I'm with
Yeah.
you, Jim. I don't know how we write something, or Jason, maybe if you understand what we're talking about.
This might be something to where we try to
We
come in support of the association's work. Could be something as simple as that. Again, this is under the guise of we're trying to narrow the scope and the focus of what we have here. This is important, though. It's very important. So, I mean, I'm okay with leaving it. Obviously, it can't elevate to the priority, but
Just case in point, it says here, allocate additional funds to address behavioral health workforce shortages. I have no idea what we're talking about there. I mean, I know we have a need, but let's be specific. You want to get 40 more people, you need $1 million, $2 million. I mean, what are we talking about? There's just not enough detail there to know how to write that bill. So to me, it's not that it's not a bad idea. It's just, I don't know how to write that bill. And they're not going to figure this out without us telling them what we need.
I think the point of that particular item on their agenda is to maintain and increase funding to the Behavioral Health Center of Excellence model that's been funded the last couple of years. And so that funding has made significant difference in terms of education for psychiatrists first and now licensed clinical providers. And so the goal is to expand the amount of money that goes to the Behavioral Health Center of Excellence. So
good context.
all they've got, all there is. I mean, when you think about the workforce shortage that's coming related to behavioral health, I don't know that there's a limit that we want to put on that, but there's, it's competing with everything else that the state funds as well. So we can follow up with the association and see if there's a specific number that they're pursuing.
You tell us what you think is best here. Do we actually add this into our legislative platform, or do we come in agreement in support of what the association's asking for? Because they are right that this needs to stay limited to CMHCs without a shadow of a doubt.
Well, is there middle ground where you could just basically say you support their agenda?
I believe so. I haven't looked at it close enough to tell you that there may be anything in the past. There has been language around Medicaid expansion. I don't think that's there right now, but I can't say for certain. But I can find out before tomorrow. That's why we picked out these few.
Yeah, I understand that. I totally get it. So, yeah.
I have a question. If you support these 3 bullet points, is the commission says that they support these 3 points. That's giving Joan and staff the authority to support the association in lobbying efforts
Okay.
without writing a bill. Is that somewhat correct?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I actually think that's a good way to perceive what's happening.
Let your
here.
department
So we're saying
director
the
and
commission
her
wanting
Experts
legislatively-
support the
Yeah.
association.
And
If they're up there lobbying, they can.
I think that's good. I like that approach. Thanks, Rusty. Everybody good?
Good solution.
We continue.
Thanks, Rusty.
Okay, next item we covered earlier, and that was the CDDO support interhab request. Do you want me to go back through that again, or did you feel like I covered that okay?
That'd be good.
Okay. All right, so
The only comment that I'd make on that, this would be an opportunity where you could make a shortcut and say, we support everything on the interhab, because there is no Medicaid expansion language on there. Everything's really specific to tactical implementations. So it shortens this up a little bit. These are probably, from Sedgwick County's perspective, the four most important things on the interhab platform, but that would be an alternative if you want to shorten this up. Legislative platform.
Legislative platform.
Okay.
Jordan's head down.
Then would you do us a favor if once they get that thing finalized, will you send it over so we all can?
Yeah, I can send you in its current form. I'll
That'd be
send
great.
that out.
But these are the 4 bullet points that are a specific interest for us. Thank you.
And so I really like that idea because it does shorten the agenda. That said, it's important that where you do something like this, that my lobbying team and myself know these are the things on the interhab agenda that we actually want you focused.
Tanya, do you want to make a note of that we make sure that Team Watkins has these 4? Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Okay, so, we're still under appropriations, under corrections, support use of evidence-based funding for community programming, need protections from legislation sweeping into general fund.
It's important. All these funds are being swept into if they're not being used, or there's a lot of limitations on them, and they're being swept into the general fund. Think about juvenile crisis centers and things of that sort, dollars that have been appropriated but again,
This is talking about the Senate Bill 367. They piled up a lot of cash and savings.
that's kind of it.
The legislatures continue to try to sweep those funds rather than recognizing the needs within the corrections sector that actually needs those funds to do certain things. So again, at least twice, if not 3 times in the last 5 or 6 years or so, they've tried to sweep, $70 million. That just has to stop. There's needs for that we have another bill. I'll talk about it at some point here today. That's going to need some funding for group homes for criminogenic kids. On top of that, there are areas of the state that have huge need for evidence-based, community-based programming. And then right now, those programs are short on funds. So there could be some expansion there. But right now, the state seems to be a little bit unwilling to appropriate those funds for those programs. And that's where the money came from, is the savings from 367.
So Commissioner Howe, is that fund, is it specific 367 funding? I mean, can we get more specific about what we're asking them to maintain?
I don't know how, I think this is the name of that fund.
Yeah,
So I think this is the right terminology.
Okay.
the fund is starting to decrease. I think last year they may have swept up to $10 million out of that fund.
Right.
And there was some discussion about doing that to support the alternative placements, but I think it just got swept into general fund and is
Disappeared.
out there. It's gone.
Yeah.
I wish Steve was still here. I think part of the intent also was to protect the money that's there until it is used in a way that's appropriate, as opposed to being swept into general fund and spent somewhere else. I think there's also been, from the corrections directors across the state, some effort to loosen up the way these funds can be used, because evidence-based only results in us receiving monies, Team Justice trying to distribute them locally into evidence-based programs that don't exist. And we send money back to the state at the end of the year because there's not programming that's evidence-based.
Yeah, that fits that.
It's so stringent that they can't meet it. So it almost would require us drafting some kind of guiding legislation that this is how we'd like to see it work.
Okay.
Otherwise the Corrections Directors Association would be lobbying on this, I suppose. I haven't seen their agenda this year, but
Well, I would suggest maybe we leave this on here and then we, on the back end, get some specifics that we need to give to Team Watkins so that they understand what it is we're trying to accomplish with this and why.
We can try to clean this up and give a better understanding, I suppose.
So if I'm understanding this, it's really kind of a two-pronged issue. One, you want to protect the money and stop it from being swept. So that's not a bill. It's not legislation. It's stopping the appropriations committee from sweeping the funds. And then the other prong is some legislation that would address this language that requires the money be spent on evidence-based. And we would just change definitionally what the money be spent on. So that is legislation.
Okay.
And that might tie in a little bit also into the monies that are set aside for crisis intervention centers that have never been spent because it doesn't exist. Loosening those up to be used in a different model, which Johnson County has a different model. That my understanding from Steve is that 4 other jurisdictions have adopted the alternative that Johnson County stood up and are receiving funding through KDADS for that. So the money sitting with KDOC could be repurposed for an alternative to that crisis intervention center. So there's a couple of prongs
There are
there.
a couple
with
that- yeah.
money.
Well, would you be able to, I don't know, draft or have Steve draft us a memo exactly what it is we're chasing and what we want to do? I'm very curious about that Johnson County model and how it might differ and what we might be able to access.
We'll get something within the week. We'll look at it.
Thank you.
On the evidence-based comment, it's more of a chicken and egg problem. I think that the reality is these programs may not exist until they're funded. And then once they're funded and they're active, then there ought to be some type of reporting back. But it's a chicken and egg problem. The program doesn't exist because they're not funding to get it started. Am I saying that right?
Correct. There,
Okay.
there are not providers who are correct. There are not providers in a position to do evidence-based programming, and giving them 1 year of funding is not enough for them to get started and continue. So they just don't happen.
Okay. We give you enough there, Tanya, to work from?
Okay, next item is health, sustainable public health funding with inflation increases for salary, operating cost and supplies.
A problem we're solving?
Absolutely. I mean, the funding has been very flat and declining to a degree for public health for a number of years. And so there've been a couple of spikes related to different influenza and then the pandemic, but then it recedes and we aren't prepared for the next one. So.
Okay.
Okay, next item is public services, support addressing the gap for youth in foster care with behavioral health issues and create a pool of matching fund for capital expenditures related to the development and implementation of juvenile crisis interventions.
So is that somebody, is that some other organization's agenda item? Somebody leading the charge on that?
I know that we are seeing that. No, these are conversations I've been having with Stephen Owens and the gang.
There isn't a statewide it's hard to be able to quantify the statewide impact. And so it's just, it hasn't risen to an awareness level in a number of, it's probably not that much different than the treasurer's issue. It's not important in some of the smaller, lower population counties. And so it hasn't reached that level statewide.
I'm trying to figure out the way forward. What's kind of the action item or action items here? Support addressing the gap for youth in foster care and behavioral health issues. Is that a bill?
Well, I guess that's my question would be, is there an existing piece of statute or legislation or program that we're asking to amend? And can we write a recommendation or legislation to amend something? Or is this something that we're coming up with on our own? Do you, any idea, Commissioner Howe?
I don't know exactly where this came from, but I know there's a need for it. I just don't know that we're the ones that started the discussion, and I don't know that I can answer the question, but there are kids with mental health problems in foster care, and there is a lack of resources and places for them to go get help in the county. So it is a need. I don't know that we're the ones that started this discussion, but I think it's something that maybe came to us and we want to support it, but I'm not so sure. So we actually started this.
Rusty, any thought?
Again, in conversations with Mr. Stonehouse in the last couple of 3 days, and I need to circle back with Tim on this. There's been some conversation initiated between ComCare our Department of Corrections, and KDADS about what they're referring to as juvenile crisis respite centers, which is the alternative to the crisis intervention centers. And there's some discussion about how that would serve some of this foster care gap, some of these kids in the gap there. And they're fairly fresh conversations. So I don't know if that's something that Tim and I and Steve and Jennifer and Chantel should maybe discuss and
Okay.
see how
See if
they
we
fit
can-
together, or if they do fit together in any way.
If we can put some structure to what it is. I mean, we obviously know there's a need and the need is growing here. So if we can see if we can put some structure together to the ask.
I mean, within KDADS, there's conversations about the foster care population and the mental health population. How do we enhance those relationships? Foster care system struggles to get kids to appointments, to systems, that sort of thing. And so KDADS is encouraging different approaches and that sort of thing. It's hard to define it, put it into a bill, what that would be, but we can certainly have that conversation here internally and see what.
Okay, let's do.
The other challenge related to the juvenile crisis intervention centers is that those regs were written so tightly, as they should be, to protect kids, but it's really hard for organizations. That there was some money available for facilities, but then operating costs weren't really addressed. And so that's the challenge of anytime you introduce a new level of service, a level of care, you've got upfront costs, and then you've got those operating costs that the system may not be ready to.
There were significant dollars appropriated for that purpose, but none could get stood up because of just how tight the regs were and how difficult it was. So none of this was used.
Right.
Okay, Jason, we'll put some structure to what it is and try to define the need a little bit better.
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, it's fine to have just kind of statements of support on your agenda, even if there's not really an actionable item. We just need to know,
We need to get you the ammunition.
well, or to say, hey, this is just, we support this. We don't have an actual action
Okay.
taking, so that, my team's not trying to figure out, do we need to draft legislation? Is there some other association we need to be working with on this?
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Okay, Tanya.
Okay, now we're going to move into policy. So under appraiser office, I'm going to read off these 6 bullet points and then we can discuss. So first item is rename the county appraiser offices to state appraiser on behalf of each county. Second item is enact a law that requires determination from the Board of Tax Appeals to be reached within 1 year of the appeal being filed with the board unless otherwise agreed to by the parties. Third bullet, tax bills sent out twice a year. May tax bill includes only state. So for example, state of Kansas, USD's tax billing. December bill then includes only local tax, county, city, cemetery, et cetera billing. Fourth bullet, require each county appraiser to post and maintain data regarding property tax appeals and valuations within the county on a website that is available to the general public. Fifth bullet, broaden the eligible pool of candidates for the county appraiser's position by amending KSA 19-430 to no longer limit county appraisers to individuals with 3 years or more of mass appraisal experience. And then last bullet, enact legislation where each county would have the option of establishing an intermediary hearing panel funded by the state that could hear and potentially resolve tax appeals before the matter may be heard by the Board of Tax Appeals Small Claims Division.
Out there to chew on. Comprehensive. There's obvious things here that we think are very, very important. If I was to look at this list and be really objective about it, I think there's some things in here that I think we all want. Are these things that are practical? I don't know. The legislature is going to view some of these things, but there are some things in this list that are really important to us.
Yeah,
Go ahead. I would just, now that two of us, Jim and I, have been through rehiring, replacing an appraisal, you might have been through it twice. I know, twice. And knowing the appraisal business that we're learning, something as archaic as 3 years of mass appraisal experience is you've got real estate attorneys, you got all kinds of quality people that know appraisal business really well, that don't have officially 3 years of mass appraisal experience. I could argue that Commissioner Bluebaugh's got 30 properties, and so is that mass appraisal experience could be qualified. I'm not nominating you for the job. I'm just there are just some things in here that, and I would respect Commissioner Howell's feeling about all these bullets, but it's kind of a messy deal to replace from a very small pool of applicants. Am I saying that correct?
Yeah, and in fact, I think our pool basically comes from the office. And again, so if you're trying to reform the office, you're almost hurting yourself from the very beginning. There's been a lot of discussion about should the appraiser be an elected official. There's all kinds of ideas out there. I think in a county like Sedgwick County, there's 70 staff reports to the appraiser. And that person needs to be a good people manager. It's maybe less important that they know about how to appraise a house themselves or a commercial property. They may not need to have that skill set specifically, but they need to have people who can do that job really well. They need to be able to manage the office, the people skills. And I just think that we're really limiting our pool. This is not a good fit for Sedgwick County. The smaller counties, maybe it's a bigger deal, but not here.
The last time we did this, I was actually an appointee from the city to come over here and help with the hiring process. And I remember how limited the pool was at that time. And I think we're missing a lot of opportunities for people with a lot of leadership experience, and maybe they don't understand the nuts and bolts. I think Brett Shelton is doing a great job right now, but he wouldn't even be qualified to take on this job full time. So
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chairman, not to overstate it, but there's a lot here. And is this one big beautiful bill?
That's wonderful. Well, are you saying, Jason, you don't think we're going to talk them into renaming the county appraiser to the state appraiser?
Well, the appraiser's not here, right? So I feel comfortable in saying nobody likes the appraiser.
Yeah.
The appraiser gets blamed for everything. And, when the appraiser shows up on your property, not happy to see them. And so I think the last thing the legislature is going to do is say, yeah, tie that person to us. So I get why you want to do it.
Certainly, me too.
It's not going to happen. And so to that point, if you were going to do a comprehensive bill, I would want that in there, because you may have legislators that like everything except that, but by God, I'm having nothing to do with that bill because I'm not taking that responsibility.
Well, and that's what this is so important. I love the idea, and I actually like the idea of two tax bills and separating even greater. What I think we need your direction on is there's some things in here that we need to get that are really, really important. If we're throwing extra things into this bill that we know may not happen, are we doing ourselves a disservice or not?
Well, the first question is, did you envision all of this being one bill, or did you envision this being a couple, or two?
Two.
Can you tell me what would be in each? Sorry to get so detailed.
We need this on this. Go ahead.
if you don't mind, I kind of want to break it up into what's important to me is getting accurate valuations. So maybe we can break that up versus maybe that's a little bit different than the appraiser we hire. I don't know if that's included. Well, like whenever we look at the first one, Boda's backed up 3 years on some of these. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for these issues to be resolved within 12 months. So I don't know if that falls into the valuation piece or the hiring piece. I just, whenever I testified last week, and I've had some offline conversations with Senator Tyson, she believes that the valuation system is broken and needs to be addressed. At the same time, she's pushing toward a cap, which I think is a different discussion than what we're having right here. So I think our messaging is going to be very important here, because from what I understand, I don't think the House is on board with the cap. So I think we need to make sure that whatever we're doing is not contradictory to where they're already at.
That's a good point. Well, personally, the second bullet point on BOTA is very important to me. The broaden the eligible pool of candidates is incredibly important to me.
One of the things Senator Tyson brought up too, I bring up this other layer of appeal. Maybe that's not a priority on this because Senator Tyson told me that she's pushing for a taxpayer advocate. I don't know exactly what that looks like. If that's somebody within our office that helps the public when they do their appeals. So I don't know. I guess I want to feel everybody out on the last one. How important is that one now?
Okay, thoughts? Mr. Hathaway?
The hearing officer panel is legal today. It's already legal. I don't understand. Is this an addition to? I guess I'm trying to understand that the hearing officer panel, does that take the place of the informal hearing, or does it take the place of BOTA? What is it? Or is this an addition to a process?
Commissioner Howell, I believe this would be an intermediary hearing panel that would act as a body to potentially hear these appeals before they would go to small claims. I think I'm looking at Tom Henry, is that he's nodding, and that
So after
appears
the
to be correct.
informal appeal and before BOTA.
And I think the primary, you're correct, that this option does exist under state law. The county would have to fund it under the current model. This item specifically asks the state to fund that, which would be different than what we have now. So that's a change that would be in place if that was done.
But is the hearing officer panel we do today, even if we were to fund it, is that inserted between the informal appeal and BOTA? It's the same.
I may ask Tom Henry to come up
process.
and answer that. He's going to do a better job than I will on that one.
Kind of I believe you're saying that correctly. It adds another step to the appeal process. So to the extent that you want to stop the administrative remedies before going to the district court and all that, it would be another step before you can even get to the.
I guess we as a commission need to have that discussion, because I'm going to wait till we get all the commissioners here. We as a commission need to have this discussion, because I think if we want to do this, we're willing to put some money behind this, we can do it today. We don't actually need legislative action to do what this is telling us to do. And I think it's that important. You want to solve property tax appeals in Sedgwick County. This is a way to get there very quickly.
Yeah.
And again, and so to answer Jason's question earlier, I think the reason that renaming is important is to me, it's not, I know they're not going to love the idea, but it reflects the truth that the appraiser does not work for the county commission. They work for PVD. That's who sets up all the rules on how they do their job. So it's more appropriate to reflect that in the title. It's a principled issue. The second part of this is I reflect on the chief elected official. I'm sorry, the chief law enforcement officer of each county. I passed a bill when I was in the legislature regarding NFA items. Basically, you make an application for an NFA item, and it land on the chief law enforcement officer desk, and it sit there for years. We said, look, that's not reasonable. We gave him 30 days. If it's not approved in 30 days, then the applicant wins. It's automatically approved. My opinion is the way this 1 year thing, I reflect on the Sixth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution on speedy trial. You make an appeal to government to say, I want to have my side heard. I'll give you 1 year. If you don't process that 1 year, it's almost like the applicant for the appeal should automatically win. The state has a requirement to process these in 12 months. So again, I think you have the hearing officer panel in place. I would think most of these will never even get to BOTA, because you already had a second bite of the apple. Third bite of the apple will be in BOTA. It should not be 3 years worth of stuff stacked up. It should be 1 year. And it should be almost said, if the state doesn't respond within 12 months, then the applicant wins. To me, this is a way to solve that problem. And so I think those are really important to me. This bottom bullet and the top two bullets, my opinion, are bill number one. And then
say that again.
the top two bullets on this, out of these five, actually, I say the bottom two bullets and the top two bullets are our first bill. That's comprehensive stuff that you could do very quickly. In fact, I think the bottom one actually we can do today without even having legislation.
I think that's my question is because we're asking for the state to fund it. It's all we're
Right.
doing, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
And the earlier, I talked about something we do in the, basically not this session, but starting in 2027, a new discussion about comprehensive reform to some office. And I said the tag office earlier. I think that conversation should happen on bullets 3 and 4. So again, it's difficult to do that in a short session, but bullets 3 and 4, I think, still have value. I'll put this on the watch list, if you will, but deal with those in 2027. But the first 2 and the bottom 2, I think we should do them this year, because then the bottom one, I think we could do right now. I don't think we actually have, doesn't require legislation unless we want them to pay for it, which I'm sure they won't. But so the top 2 and then the 1, 2, 3, 4, top 2 and number 5, in my opinion, are easy and urgent. And I think they could do those in the session. And you want to look, everybody running for governor says we're going to fix property taxes. Okay, here's your chance. We're giving them an answer on how to make this better right now this year, rather than doing a cap on assessments, which what I think they're going to do is cap assessments. This is more scientific. This is actually going to solve a problem. So I would say this is important. I would not push these back.
Commissioner Howell makes fantastic points. I would agree with the 1, 2, and 5. For all the reasons that, not to repeat. And the reason, Commissioner Howell makes a great point that if we can already do number 6, it's a discussion for us to have. Right now, the appraiser's there, and then an appeal, BODA. We still get a lot of, we get the accusations or the comments that it's all our problem. If we actually take if we make another step where we are inserting ourselves with a committee or an appointee or one of us, then we're saying that we are involved. And so we will be more involved than we already are from the public's perspective. So I would agree that item number 6, I would respect everything the majority of our commission, I would respect whatever we'd want to do. And I could probably be talked into one way or another, but that's my gut feeling on number 6, which goes back to the first statement of 1, 2, and 5 are pretty important.
Let me revise what
Maybe number 1. I'll just finish. Maybe number 1, Jason, you're right. It's saying that is dead on arrival. Maybe we make that the 3rd bullet. But I respect that, and maybe we don't get anywhere, but maybe they'll.
Yeah, you can put it in a bill and they can pass the rest of it and then that out if they really hate it.
Okay. If we're really narrowing this down, I think 2 and 5 are it for me, because even 4, we can do that internally.
Right.
I don't know how important it is for me to police other counties on if they don't want to put their appeal data out there.
I would agree with that. I think 2 and 4 in my world are crucial, very, very important. So
2 and 5,
or forgive me, 2 and 5. Yeah.
And I was going to amend what I said earlier. I think number 4, the data on the website, we can do that now.
Yeah.
So again, whether we mandate that from the state or not, it doesn't really matter. We can choose to do that in the county today. So the hearing officer panel and the data, I think we should do that immediately. We should have that discussion and fund that from the county. The other ones, the one that's so hard is about splitting the tax bill. That's complicated. I understand that. That's going to take a much more
I love it. But it's
bigger
not
discussion,
going,
but
Great idea.
Don, you got what you need? 2 and 5.
I just want to make sure 2 and 5, and we're going to drop the first one, correct?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So 1, 2, and 5.
correct.
2 and 5 are first.
All right.
Goes to 3rd place.
So Justin,
Yes, Jason. Understood.
I just want to make sure that you understand, because it's your office that's going to write that bill, right?
Yeah, and we've been preparing for this already, so we knew there was a good chance for it. Thanks.
Very good. Okay, let's keep moving.
Moving into corrections now, amend necessary KSAs to add juvenile detention facilities to reimbursement provisions previously ratified for adult jails in 2023-2024 session SB 228. 2023-2024 session SB 228 directs KDADs to reimburse counties for costs related to holding an adult person in custody while awaiting examination, evaluation, and treatment to restore competency and speed.
specific.
I remember that we took a stab at that last session, I believe, that county council drafted some language and there was some, I think there may have been some issue with the format that we submitted it in. As I recall, so we need to look into that, but it's a carryover from last year that pretty sure we wrote some language and sent it up there, but we couldn't amend. We sent it as an amendment to a bill, but all of that bill had been enacted into law and had been dispersed into statutes, and
Okay.
there's some issue with that.
Find out what that
The way
was.
that yeah, there was something more
Never
complex.
actually got legislation. You might have done something, we never got anything back from the advisor.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly that, but
Okay, well, it's important, so we'll keep it
Check
on,
into
but
that.
we'll figure out what the details are. Okay,
Okay, next one is make enhancements to SB 367. This is in 2016 via passage of HB 2329, out of home placements, illegal firearm possession by juveniles.
Commissioner Howard?
I just want to add, just to make sure Jason's aware, and I hope you know, I have a roundtable discussion on October 30th on this topic. And I have both I believe I have House and Senate chairs going to be convened on that meeting. And this has already passed the House. It's waiting for Kelly Warren in the House and Senate Judiciary. And she plans to be at the meeting on the 30th. She does. So we're making progress on that. I really think we're getting, if we can get some compromise amendments prepared, we have a chance of seeing this advance in January.
bad idea on that one. Which I guess you could also do with the committee's bill, but maybe note on the agenda that it's passed the House and requires action by the Senate.
Good,
It's
good.
a little more.
It'd be helpful for us too to understand, yeah, some of these things. I agree. Okay.
Okay, next item then is support public defender model for juvenile offenders. Current model is appointment model. There's been some work to improve defense in the juvenile court. It may shift funding responsibility from the county to the state. The Board of Indigent Defense is a state funded entity.
I believe there was a state study done on this a few years back. And I don't think much action has been taken on the recommendations from that report. And Steve and Mario feel somewhat strongly about cleaning up. I don't know what action will be taken this year on this, but it's something that's been in queue for.
Well, we can allow them, us doing this allows them to go chase some of this and support some of this. Commissioner Howe? Okay. Okay.
Next one is elections office. First one, modified statute to eliminate redacted results data for any election precinct separated from other precincts by any public right of way, county or township roads, or similar, geographical divisions that may be combined with an adjacent precinct, as long as the political districts are the same for each of the combined district. Second one is modify statute for precinct person election results data shall not be considered final or official until county canvassing is complete. The election commissioner or county clerk of a county shall be afforded up to 3 business days to transmit the official results of precinct elections to the office of the Kansas Secretary of State.
Okay. Commissioner Howe's been talking about this first point since I got here.
Yeah, I say that second one probably can go on a watch list. I don't think it's that important. It's a topic that we can talk about, but it's not urgent. The first one, when the elections committee, which has to talk about election stuff, they're going to be having meetings talking about stuff. I can't imagine something more important than this because the data does not add up. They're talking about election integrity. You understand, you look at results, the data does not add up. So they find that out, they're going to be very interested in this topic. So they have enough, this is not, because it's a different committee, I think this could stay on this list.
Okay.
I can explain it. Just so you understand, we're redacting a huge amount of thousands of votes in an election are redacted because we have small precincts, so it will not reveal the choices of specific voters. That data is redacted, and that is a problem. So it's easy to fix. This would fix it.
So is this something that we're just gonna talk to legislators about? What we introduce?
Get me connected to someone on that committee, and I'll get that bill written. It's easy to, once they understand what's going on here, it's fairly easy to fix.
Guy named Pat Proctor chairs that committee, and he's also running for Secretary of State.
I have his number and I'll give him a call, but I think this is going to be when I talked about this with him, he was very excited about the discussion. So
Good, very good. Okay, facilities.
Okay, next one is facilities, amend KSA 19214 and increase the contract expenditure amounts that triggers the mandatory public letting requirement for county construction contracts from in excess of 25,000 to up to 100,000.
And this is just matching what the state already is.
Allow contracts up to 100,000, but county, local government does not have that ability.
A broken record.
Are we writing that bill?
You're writing that bill, or is that something the Association of Counties is going after?
I think if the will of the board is to include this on the platform, it'd be a pretty easy bill to write because it's a simple change in
We'll do it.
KSA 19.
Go ahead, mark that, yeah.
Yep.
It's gonna be simplified as to match what the state procurement is. We don't say that directly.
I'll add that in there.
Okay. We'll keep that theme in mind, Mr. Watkins.
Next one is finance and economic development, 2 bullets. First one, support amendments to statutes that allow counties to go out for sales tax in quarter-cent intervals to allow that to instead be done in 1/8 cent intervals. Second one is SB 13 in 2019 to allow for adjustments to the revenue neutral rate.
Okay.
Next one is health, enact language that allows counties to take action to protect the public from dangerous animals while also ensuring that the owners of such animals are afforded constitutional due process.
I question if we should get involved in that level personally. It's on this one.
I got a story for you. You don't have time for it right now, but trust me, this is a big topic. And the people who have animals being shredded by their neighbors, their beloved pet gets shredded by their neighbors, and there's no remedy from government to address that problem. This is a problem. So I would argue that people have a right for government to step in and do something about that situation when that happens.
And Chairman, is it okay if I speak to that briefly? Just wanted to, I think I maybe have mentioned this before, and obviously it's up to the will of the board on whether you include this in your platform. The concern from our office's standpoint is that the state laws on this may limit what the judges can do. If you had a dangerous dog, for example, that bit a person, or Commissioner Howell indicated that it was attacking other animals, there are limits to what county court judges can do under state law. There's case law to that effect that indicates how it's limited. And there's not clear authority by statute to where if that dog was being dangerous and a harm to the public, that the dog could be taken away from the owner, perhaps when they are dangerous. Wouldn't want anything that would contradict anyone's due process rights, an opportunity to hearing with the dog or anything like that. We would certainly want to preserve that. But there is a concern that the public could at least in the unincorporated areas, wouldn't have those same protections we're used to seeing in cities. They have constitutional home rule. Counties don't have that. It's a similar thing to the nuisance abatement law that got adopted a handful of years ago in Sedgwick County, and now I think all the counties have the right to have that nuisance abatement. It's a very similar concept.
So we're trying to match a little bit more what's happening at the municipal level for some of the unincorporated folks.
Yeah, for public safety is the aim here.
One other comment that I'd make is that from a statewide appeal, if this were to appeal to other counties, every jurisdiction has animal control in a different part of their organization. Here we have it in health, but in many other counties, it's going to be a law enforcement component. So the heading may distract people as well. So.
Okay, good. Okay, Commissioner Howe, I think you'll work with Justin on that.
Okay, next one is MAPD, and then KSA 66/2019 to allow local governments to consider cell tower zoning and conditional use cases.
Shudder every time I hear cell phone, cell tower zoning.
Okay, next item is public works, modify statute that would shield municipalities from liability if they would go above and beyond MUTCD, traffic engineer guidelines, manual on uniform traffic control devices, requirements, and wouldn't then be responsible if they would remove that additional condition.
Okay, so this is one that we would get some modified language over to. Okay,
I agree with it, although I don't think it's going to happen in the 75-day session. So again, we could write this bill, but it's complex and I think it's a good idea, but I don't think we can get this in a short session.
Yeah, I think if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm reserved comment kind of along those lines until the very end.
Yeah.
Okay, next one is Regional Forensic Science Center, and then KSA 651108 to exempt Sedgwick County Regional Forensic Science Center to obtain approval from Secretary of Health and Environment for testing of controlled substances. Rusty, do you want to add anything on this one?
No, this is a statute that hasn't been amended for decades. And Shelley just feels that as a best practice, it should be amended to reflect that the Science Center, like KBI, are exempted from this so that there's no question. County Counselor's Office is already drafting an amendment. And if we can just push it to our lobbyists, and if they can work at this session, if not, then we can carry it over to next session. But she's communicated with Johnson County because they also have a lab who does this, who should be included in the statute. So it's just a cleanup of a statute that hasn't been amended for years and probably should.
Thank you.
Okay, last four items are just under general Sedgwick County. Amend KSA 64101B to be non-uniform with respect to counties so that counties, like cities, would have the flexibility to consider alternative methods of publication in addition to traditional newspaper publication, which could result in taxpayer savings. Next item is unilateral annexation. County has no representation. Continue support for right of counties to vote on unilateral annexation, similar to what is permitted in KSA 12-521. Third bullet, extend constitutional protection for county home rule authority. And then last item is remove KSA 79-1613 property tax relief to damaged structures. That is
Right. Okay, well, we got a little bit of work done here in some of these things, and obviously elevated to some priorities that we have. So before we do some final comments here, because we're trying to pass this tomorrow, so there's some thoughts.
Do you, Justin, have? I mean, I looked at you after so many of
And he
these.
put his head down. I know that.
Yeah, he wouldn't make eye contact with me. How many bills are you going to need to draft? Do you have a count on?
I'm compiling the counts a lot. We can do it if there's an interest. I mean, I think some of it also, I assume this may be part of what your comments get to, is the legislative capital and efforts both on your part, on the commissioner's part, in terms of prioritization. But we can most of these items. I think the commissioners have chiefly selected items that are fairly simple to craft bills relative to other items that may be more complex. I'm not saying every single one of them is simple, but I think some of the more complex items have been narrowed down. So we have the capacity to do it. I mean, we got very busy attorneys who have a lot of other items on their plate, but we can make it happen because it is early enough now, and we have started on some of these items. So I think if the will of the board is to have us craft bills, we can do it, certainly.
And it's probably one thing for the county counselor's office to draft, and it's something different, right, to submit to the office of the revisor. I mean, I would caution us against trying to submit 20 bills.
Okay, right.
And I think we're probably close to that based on this. That is not reasonable. To have the revisor's office do that. We won't, there's not time. We just won't. So I think, I don't know, Mr. Chairman and commissioners, if this afternoon and this evening in your own free time, if you try to figure out how to whittle this down a little bit, or if you have Justin and his team go ahead and do the drafts, and then maybe at a later date, decide, what are your top, 4 or 5. But that's really probably what's reasonable.
Okay.
Unless some of these, if there's other groups that are going to be working these, it's not a lot of effort on our part to go get a bill introduced, right? Justin's team writes it, we give it to the revisor. Once we get it back from the revisor, Jessica or Nathaniel or I go before that committee and make the request for an introduction. that takes 15 seconds. But then there's the whole process of having to get a chairperson to schedule a hearing, informing committee members then of what this bill is that's going to have a hearing next Tuesday, and who Rusty Leeds is, who's going to be coming up to testify on this bill. Then we're working with them to have a vote after. I want to make sure folks understand there's a lot to getting a bill passed. And this is going to sound like I'm either cocky or kidding, and some road in between, I guess. We've been really good at getting legislation passed for Sedgwick County the last several years. And sometimes I think that creates an appearance of this is really easier than what it is. There's a lot that goes into it.
I agree.
And it is a process, as Commissioner Howell just referenced. We're looking at and when we say a 75-day session, that doesn't mean 75 days of the cabinet, right? We're talking 75 calendar. So,
Jason, I appreciate that. I think that I think we did some good work here today to hear the opinions of my colleagues and your opinion, and obviously legal opinion. Tomorrow, this is a new business item. We're going to have some more discussion. I think what I would encourage our colleagues to do today and tomorrow morning maybe is just look through here and let's try to find out, hey, what are the things that we are going to ask our counselor's office to draft a bill on and do it. And I think tomorrow we whittle this thing even a little bit more to get to that point. I mean, you're right. We're not going to be able to introduce 20 bills and have any success. And we certainly don't want to go through the motions just to go through the motion. We want to make sure that our ducks are in order and we're throwing weight where it can be moved. So that's helpful. Okay.
Could I add? So without putting you on the spot, Jason, would you consider, I mean, you've heard our individual thoughts and, some are more important than others. Could you take like an independent view and say, I think these 5 or 6 have the best chance and the others are just on I like the idea of watch list. I think we all could try to do this exercise. Do we have this electronically yet?
I can send it to you.
That way we could comment in,
Refine.
out, or,
Yeah.
or watch list.
Be to edit this after.
I think it'd be helpful.
Correct.
Yeah.
Get it to us and we'll try to do that if we all have time to do that before tomorrow. But would you be comfortable without feeling like you're offending any of us individually?
probably wouldn't be comfortable. Let me say this. I think there's nothing stands out to me on here that is impossible to get. I wouldn't be comfortable figuring out for you what I think your priorities should be.
Right.
I didn't see anything on here that I'm like, that's just a non-starter. I mean, I'm smiling with Commissioner Howell a little bit on his renaming the appraiser's office. But I think you can put that in the bill and if it comes out,
Nothing lost.
But I do think you just need to figure out what you have to have.
So the burden's on us to try to comment.
Okay. And some of it too is what are we presenting as things that are legislative priorities for us, but also the second vein of that is what are we asking to actually write a bill and go push a bill? There's 2 veins here that we're working through. So
Those are very different.
they're very different. Yeah. Because there are things that we want to keep on the platform that we signal to the community and we signal to our departments that we're advocating for. And then there's things where we're going to ask them to write a bill and we're going to go up and we're going to push bills.
Well, and it's similar to what you did last year. We got to session and there were issues with bills being produced by the reviser. And I think a week or 2 in, we had to say, hey, this is a different world than what we've been operating in.
Right.
We need to know you need to give us 4 or 5 things that we have to get done. You did, and I think we got most of them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Agreed.
it's easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd like to maybe approach this mathematically. If you were to rate these ideas on 3 things, number 1, the importance to Sedgwick County Board of County Commissioners and our staff, the importance to our organization and to our people. I think property taxes, again, is probably top of the list in some ways. So I think if you rate this basically on importance to us, not necessarily some other agency or some other, some of this is not that important on that scale. That's the first thing I would do is rate it on how important is it to us. Number 2, how complex is it? It's a very complex bill to write and difficult. There's gonna be a 25-page bill. There's gonna be a 2-paragraph bill. To me, that is another thing to wait here. The number 3, the difficulty, how hard is it to get people to understand the importance, if you will, and pass this bill? This low hanging fruit, like the life forensic science stuff, in my opinion, is easy to pass. Once they have it in front of them, it's like, who wouldn't vote for that? Plus the bill's already basically written. So that ought to be, high. You should rate that one high. I think, at least on the last 2 things I just mentioned. To me, it may not be that important to me personally or as a government here, but it's important to our agency. And it's easy to write because it's already done. It's easy to pass because it's easy to understand. So if you rate these 3 things on every bill, I think you find out which ones should stay on that list. If it's an easy bill to write, it's very, really important, and it's easy to pass it, then we should do it. If it's complex, it's hard to explain, it's going to be a 30-page bill, it's not that important to the organization, then we should probably even start the process.
It's good. Helpful.
Can we at least make an exercise to try to rate these things? 5 of us should do that, and maybe Jason should do that, and we could see if we agree.
Yeah, I think tomorrow morning, I think we can. Yeah, I really do. So you'll send out a revise. That'll kind of narrow this thing down a little bit to some focus points, and then we'll take it from there. And then tomorrow morning, we got a new business item where we're kind of pass an agenda.
I apologize. I hope I'm not putting you in a situation where you kind of have to work through this tomorrow during the agenda.
I think it's worthwhile. And I think there's something to be said for trying to get this thing out of the way. I think we're earlier than years past, at least previous couple of years that I've been here. And I think that's okay. I think we're trying to get this out of the way. We give the counselor's office plenty of leeway. We give Watkins' team plenty of leeway and work. And then we start advocating. And we're also waiting for some of our joint platforms also. So.
One facilitation tool that I know can be useful in a situation like this is if we rate them instead of 1 to 10, it's 1 to 9, and you only use odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Actually, I think you take the 5 out too. So 1, 3, 7, 9. If you just kind of go through the commissioners with those numbers, I think it'll really show what's important to us.
Is 1 most important or least important?
Whichever way you want to do it.
We're consistent in our numbers.
Yeah. I think one is the most important thing.
Okay. Yeah. So if it's a 9, it's not as important. Okay. Can we also have just in terms of trying to get this passed tomorrow, can we go ahead and actually show the watch list and say, we're not really approving a platform here, but we can see these things on the watch list. We're happy to know we've not lost the idea. Show them over there and say, we're adopting the platform, but we do see the watch list. That'd be at least,
these are
so we have an awareness of the idea is still out there somewhere. Okay.
And that for the public to know, and I think a reminder is some of this strategy is heavily influenced by such a shortened session as there's pressure. I mean, if we had a normal traditional session, I think that we'd maybe take a different tack, but we know we're working with some rules and some approaches that we've got to have some expediency.
I'm curious, isn't the consensus revenue estimating group, their spring report doesn't come out till like April 20th, around that date, April 15th. How can they how can they end the session in March when they already have any idea what's going to happen with the budget after April 15th?
Yeah, they did it last year. They were adjourned, had the budget done before the consensus.
I know they're anxious to do sign and die because it opens up fundraising and campaigning, but it would be smart in some ways to take a break during the session, a longer break, and let that date happen to finish up the budget, because that number is so important to what they do.
They've really, Commissioner, changed the budget process from, the time that I served, the time that you served. You had your Major Appropriations Act, and then you have the, what do you call it? Budget at the very end. They're not even doing omnibus, and they're not doing it anymore. So consensus revenue estimating numbers just aren't really coming into play. I mean, they're building a budget off of November revenue consensus, but
okay. You're very helpful. And again, publicly, we just want to thank your entire team. You guys, we're joking how easy it is, but we're joking because you guys have good success for us. So we appreciate it. Okay. Tomorrow morning, Tanya?
Yes.
Okay. Tim, anything else?
Nothing else.
All right, guys, have a good day. See everybody tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.